When you attach, you're operating from your ego. What is ego? It's your sense of self-worth, your self-esteem, essentially. So in every relationship, there's a runner and then there's a chaser, and you have to identify which one you are. Typically, if you're having trouble detaching, you're probably the chaser. And that's what my problem was for my entire 20s. I was the chaser. And it's because my love language is giving. I love to give. So when I would start to date these men, I would be like, oh my goodness, let me, I have this really cute date in mind. Let me plan the date, or I want to take you on a date, or I have this really cute gift for you, and I wrote a little letter with it. And that was just my love language. That's how I wanted to be loved. And I thought that I had to give them something to get something, to get any type of affection, or I wanted them to see so badly that I had these wifey qualities, and I would just come on too strong at the beginning and just give and chase. So when they would stop texting me, or when they would just ghost me, or not put in enough effort, there I was texting, and I'm upset, and I'm telling them that I'm worth it, and I deserve better, and yada yada yada. But the problem is, they're not hearing my words because my actions are saying something completely different. I'm telling them that I deserve better. I'm asking for explanations, and asking, why did you just ghost me, and why don't you ever text me back in a timely manner, and I would do this for you, and da da da. But I'm sitting here practically begging. So clearly that means that I'm not going anywhere. So that tells them that they can do whatever it is that they like, and I'm still going to be blowing up their phone, or I'm still going to try to prove to them why they should still pursue me, and that I'm worth the effort, essentially begging them to chase me again. And I didn't even know that that's necessarily what I was doing. So now they get to sleep at night while I'm up crying and in my feelings, wondering where it is that they're at, where their head is at. They know exactly where my head is at. I've told them how I felt. My actions have let them know that I still have feelings for them, or that they've basically got me wrapped around their finger, and that I'm not really going anywhere. So they're sleeping good at night, knowing that they can just put in the minimal effort and that I'm going to be around. They didn't really have to do much for me to say, hey, look, I saw this really cute gift and I got it for you. So now the relationship is going to be doomed from the jump, because I've now let them know that I take bare minimum effort and I give the most when you give me bare minimum. Let's use the Anna Delvey story for a minute. Now, ignore the fact that she was a con woman, X, Y, and Z. But let's talk about the scene when she was pursuing that lawyer. Anna Delvey was really a nobody, but she had all the confidence in the world, and she kept pursuing this lawyer. Oh, please represent me. I need you. And he kept saying no. He wasn't giving her the time of day. He was having her kicked out of the office. He was like, I don't care who you know. I don't care what your business plan is. This is I'm a very high stature lawyer. I cost a lot of money. I don't see what you really have to offer. I'm not feeling it. No. And she was just persistent, kept going back. Once Anna was finally able to prove herself and detach, those roles got reversed. Now that high stature lawyer is now working for her for free. He didn't charge her a dime, and now he's at her every beck and call. She's telling him, we're a good team. I think that you should work with me. And he's like, yeah, I would be honored. His life changed because she was in his life. It went from her knocking and stalking and begging him to represent her, to him following Anna around like a little puppy dog and representing her for literally nothing. Because now he saw her as the Anna Delvey. And it's because Anna really just detached and reversed those roles. So in 2020, I went to an ashram, and my yoga instructor was sitting at the front of the yoga deck, and he was talking to us yogis. And as he's holding his wife's hand, and he's he's holding it, and he's just stroking it and just being very affectionate with her as he's talking to us. And he's saying, I love my wife so much. This is when we met. Once we became married, we became one, X, Y, and Z. And we're all thinking that he's going to tell us some beautiful love story and all of this. But he was talking about ego and attachment and detachment. And then he goes, but if my wife ever left me, that's okay, I'll be fine. And we were all like, ooh. And now we're looking at the wife, and I was watching her face very intensely, trying to, look for any subtle change or like a shock factor. And she was just like, and she wasn't fazed by what he said. And it's because she knew that what he was saying was true. They have both mastered the art of detachment, and they both knew that they were two whole individuals that chose to be with each other. And she also had the confidence and the self-worth knowing that if he were to also leave her, she would be fine. But at the time, we didn't understand that. So we were like, what do you mean if your wife left you, you would be okay? You should crumble to pieces, and you shouldn't even be able to breathe if your wife left you. And that's so disrespectful to say in front of 30 other people. But at the time, we were unknowledgeable. So that's how we saw it. But now looking back on it, I completely 110% understand what he was saying, that even though that this is the love of his life, if needed, he still would be able to detach from her, and she would be able to detach from him as well. Once I understood this, I was literally able to detach from any and everybody. Anybody who's anybody, I could detach from them once I finally understood this. That person was sent to trigger a change. That person was sent to trigger a change. Nothing more, nothing less. That is it, because we are on a life journey into evolving into our purpose, evolving into our full selves. And once we have undoubtedly unshakable self-love and self-understanding, then that's when we get blessed with our true partners. That's when all the lessons have been met, everything is done. Now we are actually capable of finding and keeping the partner that God has for us. But until then, we have some things that we need to work out, and he's going to send people down to help trigger that change. So, for example, I'll use my own dating life as an example. I was 21, and let's start with Christian, because Christian's where everything really started for me. Christian was physically my dream man. If I could write or draw my dream man on a piece of paper and say, God, this is exactly what I want my future husband to look like to a T. That was Christian. I was so attracted to him that the first time I ever saw him, it was on my 21st birthday, and we went out to like a bar, and I saw him and I instantly looked away, because at that time I was still struggling with self-esteem and self-worth, and I was like, oh, he's not gonna be interested in me. And he approached me. So now I'm nervous but like excited at the same time. Oh, and that my dream man actually approached me first, and he's pursuing me, and he asked me out on dates and what have you. Christian played me like a fool. And I continued time and time again to let him, because I put him on such a high pedestal, and I had myself on such a low pedestal, that he was sent to trigger that. He was sent to change that and make me see that we were actually on equal playing fields. So whether it was he would only call me late at night and I would just accept it, would only want to see me after hours, never want to actually take me on any real dates, and I would just kind of accept the scraps. And he had this toxic way of showing interest in me. He loved to fight. That's kind of what excited him. So we were constantly arguing. He loved to, it was almost like he inspired to have an Eminem and Kim relationship. That's just what excited him. He always wanted to have something volatile going on between us. If it was peaceful, something wasn't normal, something didn't feel right. And I played into it in a way. It started to excite me too, but that's might be getting a little bit off topic. Was letting him change me in that way though. But I was accepting so many of his unacceptable behaviors simply for the fact that I thought that I should just be grateful that somebody who looked like him wanted me. I was just so excited to have him, and I put him on such a high pedestal that I was willing to play his games and accept the unacceptable. Until finally, I was like, you know what? If somebody like you wants me, there's going to be other men equally as fine as you who also want me. And then I was able to finally understand that and walk away. And that was the lesson that Christian came to teach me, was that, listen, you are pretty enough to pull men that look like that. You don't have to sit here and let him play in your face simply because you think that somebody that looks like him won't want you again. If he wants you, 50,000 other men who look like him will want you, or that you're actually attracted to that extent. He was sent to help me recognize that I am also beautiful and that I also deserve more, and that I can actually take him off that pedestal and move on. Now there's Michael. And me and Michael actually get along on a friendship level. I've never had anybody talk to me, so sweet before. We're on the phone for hours. Now there's actually a connection here. So when Michael moved away, he moved back to the Midwest, and we stayed doing this long distance thing. I figured, we have a connection this time. I'm gonna go down to the Midwest and I'm gonna stay with him, and I'm gonna be in a relationship with him, what have you. Because when I got to Chicago, it wasn't the same. I started to notice things that he wasn't doing. When you're in a long distance relationship, it's easy to sweet talk somebody over the phone, and it's easy to just sit in that connection. But when you're in person and they have to actually be in that relationship with you, you're going to start to see things that they're lacking, or see things like, that's unacceptable, more unacceptable things, right? And he was sent to teach me that just because we get along in that sense, and just because I felt like we were compatible, I'm still deserving of more. He was sent to let me use my discernment and say, I'm able to walk away from you even though I felt like we had a good connection. I just don't feel like you're the one for me. Then comes Sai. And Sai was the biggest heartbreak I've ever experienced in my life, which is funny because he was also the shortest out of the three that I have talked about. And it's because I allowed him to hurt me, because I didn't use my own intuition at all. I completely relied on tarot cards and psychics telling me that I was going to meet this man, and that this man was going to be, the end all be all, and he was going to be my husband, and this is how he truly felt about me. And I got addicted. I was constantly going to them, asking them, how he felt about me. And it almost felt like they were just kind of telling me what I wanted to hear. So I did not rely on my own discernment at all. And I completely ignored every red flag that I saw, and would justify it by saying, oh, even though that this is a red flag, they're telling me that this is the man that I'm supposed to be with, so I'm just going to do it. And I specifically remember him saying in the beginning, oh, what would hurt you the most? And I said, well, what would hurt me the most is if you were to just leave and not say anything. Like, if you don't want me, tell me and I will walk away. I will leave you alone. I tell you that this man completely ghosted me and just left me hanging. Like, one day we went to the movies and, did our date night again, like it was the norm. He came over to my house after the date, things such as that. And then just completely stopped responding to all of my messages. And then a year later, it took me a year of heartbreak I had never been that blindsided. That's what I get for not using my own intuition and not realizing red flags and letting other people use my discernment, or tell me what my discernment is, so to speak. So that's what Sai taught me. He taught me that I needed to rely more on myself, and that I needed to trust myself more, not to ignore red flags, and that no matter how bad the pain hurts, that I will be able to get over it, and that I will smile again, I will laugh again. So he was one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned till this day. And once we understand the why behind something, it's going to make it so much easier for us to actually detach, because now we have the answers that we've been looking for. Before, we couldn't let go because we were like, why is this happening? Why did you break my heart? Why aren't you responding? Now we have the answers that we need. So whenever you're in the midst of chaos or anger or heartbreak, you're going to say, where did I start in the beginning of this relationship, and where did it end? Where did he leave me, he or she? And now that you're reflecting, you're realizing that some type of change has been triggered. Oh, I'll never put a man before myself. I'll never put a woman before myself. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. Cool. Even if it's out of anger, now you've learned the lesson that you needed to learn, and you can officially detach from that person. Once you detach, the roles are going to reverse, and that person's going to be chasing you, whether you want them to or not, whether you're fed up with them or not. And you need to understand that we made these soul contracts before we were both actually in human form. So when we were up there, our souls were like, yo, when we go to planet Earth, how about you be my first heartbreak so that you can actually teach me how to love myself? And then you guys were like, bet, let's do it. And then you guys went down to planet Earth and you made it happen. But because we are in human form and we're only human, we're going to have all of these emotions. We're going to feel so much more deeply. We're not going to understand it at the time, and it is going to hurt at the time. We are going to be more fragile at the time, and that's okay. Point is that if you're sitting here watching this video, you're not broken. Your feelings may be a little hurt. You may feel a little fragile, but you're not broken. Every person that you meet, picture them have a little key, and every time you date somebody, that little key just gets unlocked, and they're unlocking a new version of yourself, unlocking a new power trait, unlocking a new self-respect that you have for yourself. But that is my view on detachment and how I was able to detach from every romantic relationship that I've ever had that was no longer serving me. Once I understood the reason behind why they were sent here to me, I always say I'm dropping videos weekly. I do need to be more consistent with that. If you guys like my video, like and subscribe and comment what you would want to see in my next video, and I'm going to see you guys next week. Bye.